You are now. Jumping now. See jumping now. Huey. Jumping now, Huey. Huey jumping on the bed. I'm a monkey.
You said no jumping on the bed?
Huey that's jumping on the bed. Huey jumping on the bed.
Well, I don't think Huey's jumping on the bed right now. No, Huey's not doing no jumping on the bed right now. Huey's writing. That's what he likes to do the most. Eat. Welcome to the MasterMind Library. They call me Ferdinand, the bringer of balance, leader of many disciplines, and one of your hosts of the MasterMind Library, the home of the MasterMind Book Club on FHTII.com. Also the home of the MasterMind BrothaHood on the Band app, right? So if anybody's interested in that, shoot me a message and I'll send you access to MasterMind BrothaHood on the Band app, right? So, you want to introduce our live audience? Go ahead. Okay, very good. Good job. Yep, very, very good. Good job. Okay. So as y'all know, on the MasterMind Library, we're on episode 120, and we are in chapter 2 of Booker T. Washington's own story of his life and work. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and move to where we need. Okay. Hey, you know what? I think what you might need is a little bit more food. Okay. So let's just keep feeding the beast. There we go. All right. This is almost nap time for you. Okay. Now, let's go to the chapter we need to be at, which is chapter 2. So chapter 2 is going to be on a little ways to go to get to chapter 2. Let's see if we're there yet. Okay, I think we're there now. All right, chapter 2, Boyhood in West Virginia. All right, so we're about to go ahead and get it started. Let's make that a little bit larger. Should be good to go. All right. You ready to get started? Okay. Chapter 2, Boyhood in West Virginia. Very good. We began life in West Virginia in a little shanty and lived in it for several years. My stepfather soon obtained work for my brother John and myself in the salt furnaces and coal mines, and we worked alternately in them until about the year 1871. Soon after we reached West Virginia, a school teacher, Mr. William Davis, came into the community, and the colored people induced him to open a school. My stepfather was not able to spare me from work so that I could attend this school when it was first opened, and this proved a sore disappointment to me. I remember that soon after going to Malden, West Virginia, I saw a young colored man among a large number of colored people reading a newspaper, and this fired my ambition to learn to read as nothing had done before. Let me give him a little bite, then we'll go ahead and get back to it. All right. I remember that soon after going to Malden, West Virginia, I saw a young colored man among a large number of colored people reading a newspaper, and this fired my ambition to learn to read as nothing had done before. I said to myself, if I could ever reach the point where I could read as this man was doing, the acme of my ambition would be reached. Although I could not attend the school, I remember that, in some way, my mother secured a book for me. And although she could not read herself, she tried in every way possible to help me to do so. All right, here goes a picture, Trey, of the old days. All right, this is the man that he saw reading the newspaper. Yep, and he felt like he needed to learn how to read after that. In some way, I cannot now recall how. I learned my letters while working in the salt furnace and coal mines. As time went on, after considerable persuasion on my part, my stepfather consented to permit me to attend the public school half of the day, provided I would get up very early in the morning and perform as much work as possible before school time. This permission brought me great joy. By 4 o'clock in the morning, I was up and at my work, which continued until nearly 9 o'clock. The first day I entered school, it seems to me, was the happiest day that I have ever known. The first embarrassment I experienced at school was in the matter of finding a name for myself. All right, let's get you another bite real quick. There you go. All right. Another name for myself. Let's see. I had always been called Booker and had not known that one had use for more than one name. Some of the slaves took the surnames of their owners. But after freedom, there was a prejudice against doing this, and a large part of the colored people gave themselves new names. When the teacher called the roll, I noticed that he called each pupil by two names. That is a given name and a surname. When he came to me, he asked for my full name, and I told him to put me down as Booker Washington. And that name I have borne ever since. It is not every schoolboy who has the privilege of choosing his own name. In introducing me to an audience in Essex Hall, London, during my visit to Europe in the summer of 1899, Honorable Joseph H. Choate, the American ambassador, said that I was one of the few Americans that had the opportunity of choosing his own name. And in exercising the rare privilege, I had very naturally chosen the best name there was in the list. My stepfather seemed to be over careful that I should continue my work in the salt furnace until 9 o'clock each day. This practice made me late at school and often caused me to miss my lessons. To overcome this, I resorted to a practice of which I am not now very proud. And it is one of the few things I did as a child of which I am now ashamed. There was a large clock in the salt furnace that kept the time for hundreds of workmen connected. You all right? Okay. You need some water?
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Drink you some water. There was a large clock in the salt furnace, that kept the time for hundreds of workmen connected with the salt furnace and coal mine. But as I found myself continually late at school, and after missing some of my lessons, I yielded to the temptation to move forward the hands on the dial of the clock so as to give enough time to permit me to get to school in time. This went on for several days until the manager found the time so unreliable that the clock was locked up in a case. It was in Malden that I first drank the water. It was in Malden that I first found out what a Sunday school meant. I remember that I was playing marbles one Sunday morning in the road with a number of other boys, and an old colored man passed by on his way to Sunday school. Let's get you another bite. There you go. All right. He spoke a little harshly to us about playing marbles on Sunday and asked why he did not go to Sunday school. He explained in a few broken, though plain words, what a Sunday school meant and what benefit we would get from it by going. His words impressed me so that I put away my marbles and followed him to Sunday school, and thereafter was in regular attendance. I remember that some years afterwards, I became one of the teachers in this Sunday school and finally became its superintendent. All right, let's get you another bite and then we'll go to the next paragraph. That's good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Every barrel of salt that was packed in the mines had to be marked in some way by the manager, and by watching the letters or the figures that were put on the salt barrels, and by hard study in school, I soon learned to read. My stepfather was not able, however, to permit me to continue in school long, even for a half day at the time. I was soon taken out of school and put to work in the coal mine. As a child, I recall now the fright which, going a long distance under the mountain into a dark and damp coal mine, gave me. It seemed to me that the distance from the opening of the mine to the place where I had to work was at least a mile and a half. Although I had to leave school, I did not give up my search for knowledge. I took my book into the coal mine, and during the spare minutes, I tried to read by the light of the little lamp which hung on my cap. Not long after I began to work in the mines, my mother hired someone to teach me at night. But often, after walking a considerable distance for a night's lesson, I found that my teacher knew but little more than I did. This, however, was not the case with Mr. William Davis, my first teacher. All right, let's get you another bite. Is it good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. After working in the coal mine for some time, my mother secured a position for me as houseboy in the family of General Lewis Ruffner. I went to live with this family with a good many fears and doubts. General Ruffner's wife, Mrs. Viola Ruffner, had the reputation of being very strict and hard to please, and most of the boys who had been employed by her had remained only a short time with her. After remaining with Miss Ruffner, After remaining for Miss Ruffner a while, I grew weary of her exact manner of having things done, and, without giving her any notice, I ran away and hired myself to a steamboat captain who was plying a boat between Malden and Cincinnati. Mrs. Ruffner was a New England woman with all the New England ideas about order, cleanliness, and truth. The boat captain hired me as a waiter, but before the boat had proceeded many miles towards Cincinnati, he found that I knew too little about waiting on the table to be of any service. So he discharged me before I had been on his boat for many hours. In some way, however, I persuaded him to take me to Cincinnati and return me to Malden. As soon as I returned home, I returned to Mrs. Ruffner, acknowledged my sins, and secured my old position again. After I had lived with Mrs. Ruffner for a while, she permitted me to attend school for a few hours in the afternoons. During 3 months, on the occasion that I should work faithfully during the forenoon. She paid me, or rather my stepfather, $6 per month and board for my work. When I could not get the opportunity to attend school in the afternoon, I resorted to my old habit of having someone teach me at night, although I had to walk a good distance after my work was done in order to do this. While living with Mrs. Ruffner, I got some very valuable experience in another direction, that of marketing and selling vegetables. Mrs. Ruffner was very fond of raising grapes and vegetables, and although I was quite a boy, she entrusted me with the responsibility of selling a large portion of these products. I became very fond of this work. I remember that I used to go to the houses of the miners and prevail upon them to buy these things. I think at first Mrs. Ruffner doubted whether or not I would be honest in these transactions, but as time went on and she found the cash from these sales constantly increasing, her confidence grew in me, and before I left her service, she willingly trusted me with anything in her possession. I always made it a special point to return to her at the end of each campaign as a salesman every cent that I had received, and to let her see how much vegetables or fruit was brought back unsold. All right, let's get you a bite. Boom. Good job. At one time, I remember that when I passed by an acquaintance of mine When I had a large basket of peaches for sale, he took the liberty of walking up to me and taking one of the ripest and most tempting peaches. Although he was a man and I was but a boy, I gave him to understand in the most forceful manner that I would not permit it. He seemed greatly surprised that I would not let him take one peach. He tried to explain to me that no one would miss it and that I would be none the worse off for his taking it. When he could not bring me to his way of thinking, he tried to frighten me by force into yielding, but I had my way. And I am sure that this man respected me all the more for being honest with other people's property. I told him that if the peaches were mine, I would gladly let him have one. But under no circumstances could I consent to let him take without a protest that which was entrusted to me by others. It happened very often that as I would pass through the streets with a large basket of grapes or other fruit, many of the larger boys tried by begging and then by force to dispossess me of a portion of what had been given me to sell. But I think there was no instance when I yielded. From my earliest childhood, I have always had it implanted in me that it never pays to be dishonest, and that reward, at some time, in some manner, for the performance of conscientious duty, will always come. And in this, I have never been disappointed. Let's get you another bite real quick, and we'll keep going. You're doing real good. In all, I must have spent about 4 years in the employ of Mrs. Ruffner, and I here repeat what I have said more than once. That aside, from the training I got at the Hampton Institute under General Armstrong, Mrs. Ruffner gave me the most valuable part of my education. Her habit of requiring everything about her to be clean, neat, and orderly gave me an education in these respects that has been most valuable to me in the work that I have since tried to accomplish. At first, I thought that her idea of strict honesty and punctuality in everything meant unkindness. But I soon learned to understand her, and she to understand me. And she has, from the first time that I knew her until this day, proven one of the best friends I ever possessed. One day, while I was at work in the coal mine, I heard some men talking about a school in Virginia where they said that black boys and girls were permitted to enter, and where poor students were given an opportunity of working for their board if they had not money with which to pay for it. As soon as I heard of this institution, I made up my mind to go there. After I had lived with Mrs. Ruffner about 4 years, I decided to go to the Hampton Institute in Virginia, the school of which I had heard. I had no definite idea about where the Hampton Institute was or how long the journey was. Sometime before starting for Hampton, I remember I joined the little Baptist church in Malden, of which I am still a member. Of my ancestry, I know almost nothing. While in slave quarters, and even later, I heard whispered conversations among the colored people of the tortures which the slaves, including, no doubt, my ancestors on my mother's side, suffered in the middle passage of the slave ship while being conveyed from Africa to America. I have been unsuccessful in securing information that would throw any accurate light upon the history of my family beyond my mother. She, I remember, had a half brother and a half sister. In the days of slavery, not very much attention was given to family history and family records. That is, black family records. My mother, I suppose, attracted the attention of a purchaser who was afterward my owner and hers. Her addition to the slave family attracted about as much attention as the purchase of a new horse or cow. Of my father, I know even less than of my mother. I only know that he was a white man. But whoever he was, I never heard of his taking the least interest in me or providing in any way for my rearing. But I do not find a special fault with him. He was simply another unfortunate victim of the institution which the nation unhappily had engrafted upon it at that time. And that concludes chapter 2. On our next episode, we'll be coming into chapter 3, Life at Hampton Institute. And just for everybody who wants a better understanding of Hampton Institute. Oh, yeah, this is the cover of the book, buddy. We're going back to the main page.
It died.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good story. You like it? That's good. Yeah.
It died now.
Yes. So this understand that for everybody in Virginia, if you're in Virginia or if you're in West Virginia, understand that Hampton Institute today is Hampton University, right? So that's right down the street from here. We're talking about 10 miles from where I'm sitting at right now. This is where Booker T. Washington got one of his initial educations, right? We can honestly say his initial education, because his original initial education, it kind of came sporadically. He was working a job while also trying to be a good student. He was trying to do night classes while working a grown man's job in a coal mine in the morning time, right? So we've got to understand the power of Hampton Institute, right? So a lot of the times we hear Howard and we hear Hampton go at it on who's the real HU. Well, I think that this book right here proves what the real HU is. The real HU would have to be Hampton University because of the illustrious Booker T. Washington going to school there, and so many other extremely important individuals of our recent past also being educated at Hampton Institute. All right. So this story is powerful. The story of my life and work. Booker T. Washington. Listen, y'all, I'm telling y'all, Tuskegee University is a very, very important university for us to talk about, because we're talking about a university that was built by the students.
No.
By the students, yep.
I do that now.
Yeah, the students built the Tuskegee University down in Alabama. You want to build a university with Daddy? Yeah. Oh, you want some more food? Okay. Let me give you some more of that. Yeah, but yeah, we should definitely build our own university so we can educate the people on the truth. Okay. Hopefully you and the other individuals in our live audience will be interested to be a part of that journey. Okay, because we need to educate the people, all right, and we need to educate ourselves, right? We need to be properly prepared, and the lessons that we're going to learn in Booker T. Washington's life story is going to give us those pieces that we need to take it to the next level. All right. So on our next episode, we got chapter 3, and that'll be episode 121. So I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you're looking forward to it. And in the meantime, expose your gift.